it said that you made $500,000, a half million, or however you want to say it, from the lazy investor. Please
Mhm.
tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that tweet was probably about a month ago when we first hit 1 million in revenue for the Lazy Investors course, which was pretty cool because this year we kind of cut out all other revenue streams and really just focused on our Clover products rather than focusing on partnerships. And I know we'll talk about that later. But we launched the Lazy Investors course back in December 2021.
So your pitch. So I looked at your pitch I'll start with Twitter because this might be a new video. So I'll repeat some of this information from burnout to a $500,000. Your Twitter tagline, where you have 3,000 followers, is build wealth, but make it easy. Host of the Money Bear podcast. So how did you come up with that pitch?
Yeah, so I mean, that's essentially what I'm all about. Is when I first started learning about money and investing and building wealth, I felt like when I was going through the content that was available online at the time, I felt like I should have already known all the things in order to be able to even understand the articles that were teaching me about like a Roth IRA or teaching me about what a 401k was. I had to like dig through so much jargon in order to just be able to read something. And I had this belief going into money management that investing was really complicated. Investing was really risky. Investing was something that you needed a financial advisor in order to be able to do. And as I started to learn, I started to realize those are all really big misconceptions that prevent a lot of us from investing, from doing it. I thought it was complicated. I thought smarter people than me were the only ones who were doing it. And so when I started to make content, I wanted to create the content that I wish I had, like something that was fun, something that was weird, something that caught my attention and kept my attention on a topic that's generally considered pretty boring, but also something that realistically anybody could do. So that's why it's all about lazy investing, is because one, lazy investing statistically is going to do better for most of us than any type of active investing where we think we've got to be like the Wolf of Wall Street. And number two, if it's lazy, if it's easy, if it's automated, then we're more likely to do it. So we got other stuff going on. We got other priorities. Most of us don't want to spend a lot of time managing our money or paying attention to our investments. And so that's really who I'm speaking to, is like, if you're not interested in studying the stock market daily, which by the way, you don't need to be interested in studying the stock market daily in order to be a good investor, that's okay. And that's actually encouraged. And let me show you how to do that so that you don't have to.
On Instagram, where you have 144,000 followers, you switch the pitch up a little bit. So the breakdown is quick money tips. With Chloe Daniels, I teach folks how to invest the lazy way. Is there any way why you switch it up there, or
it's so funny?
I guess just walk me through it.
I've never had to think about like how I position myself on different platforms. I think it goes back to like the character count and like what's allowed. And also the algorithms are different. So I don't really know enough about the Twitter algorithm because I don't pay attention to it enough. But with the Instagram algorithm, the reason that it says quick money tips first is because I had to think, what are people searching for? Like, are people searching for lazy investing? Probably not. They're not. They don't even know what that is. But are they searching for quick money tips? Probably. If they're like trying to get better with money, that might be a search term they're actually using. So that decision was an SEO perspective. And then build wealth, I don't have build wealth, but make it easy on my Instagram.
It's the third line. So you say I
teach so I still have that.
Invest the lazy way, and the third line is build wealth.
I just had more characters on Instagram.
I think this is good insight for people to hear because you'll overcomplicate it and not do anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's all about like using what you have available. So like kind of keyword stuffing, obviously to the extent in which it makes sense. But like I have the keyword invest. I have the keyword quick money tips. I have the keyword or the Money Bear tag, so people know I have a podcast. So that's really it. I mean, it's pretty much the same stuff, but I think you just get a little extra space on Instagram.
And on Instagram, I don't have the link here, so can you remind the people in case there's a new section of the video or they forgot? It has a free investing guide. Where can they get that information?
Yeah, so we have a free investing guide at moneyrightguide.com.
Which I think is going to be a good segue for. So in the book, Key Person Influence, which we've been walking through about the 5 Ps, They talk about publishing in the book, which is probably over a decade old now, but he recommends book, but you have a blog. I guess my question would be, do you have a book and I'm just unaware? Or I kind of feel like you mentioned with TikTok, mini podcasts, mini episodes, and this quick form content has really, I won't say taken over for books, but can be an equivalent way for you to communicate with your audience. Is that a shared experience that you have?
Yes, agreed. I have a blog. We post content on there 2 times a week. And I say we because my content director has a huge role in that, as well as our SEO specialist. And then I've got the podcast as well, which has 2 episodes a week too. In terms of a book is really not a priority for me at this moment, just because I really do think people get the long form content that they're looking for on the blog as well as the podcast. But if my community is like, we really want a book from you, eventually I will do it. It just seems like such a huge undertaking. And I've gone through the book publishing process with two publishers, and the traditional route isn't particularly appealing to me at this time, just because you have to give away so much of your creative decision making. And I'm glad I didn't go with the last 2 that I was offered, because one of them, I had very little control over how the book was designed, as well as the cover and any creative aspects of it. But then the other one didn't want me to really tell my story as much. And I was like, the only reason somebody would want to purchase my book over anybody else's book who's writing about the exact same thing is because they resonate with my story. Why would I write a how-to book without some of my story? Because who cares? You can get the how-to anywhere, but the story is why anybody would decide to work with me over someone else.
Other P is product. My air freshener went off. My other P is a product, which I guess, is there anything beyond the Lazy Investor course that people can purchase from you? And then if not, can you tell people what they get from the Lazy Investor?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different products. I mean, the Lazy Investor community is really where it's our bread and butter. So we've got the Lazy Investors course, which is all focused on how do you start investing? How do I take you from being overwhelmed, not understanding the stock market, to being an investor? And then we also just launched a money management bootcamp this year as well. We usually only sell it as a bundle with the Lazy Investors course, but it is available for purchase separately. It's way cheaper in the bundle. And that's focusing on the basics of how do I budget? How do I put together a spending plan? How do I understand my debt? How do I increase my credit score? Things along those lines. And then we've got a couple of smaller products as well. We have the Lazy Wealth Planner, which is a spreadsheet that will a spreadsheet doesn't give it enough justice. It's an entire dashboard on how to organize your finances, and it comes with some videos walking through how to use it and how to what with the information that you're getting from knowing your numbers, what do you do next? And then we also have which we haven't, I don't think we've really talked about this publicly yet because we just made it available. We have
breaking news.
I know, breaking news. It's not that exciting, but I think it is exciting because it's important. We have 181 money questions for couples. It's a couples guide on conversation starters to have better conversations about money, just because that's something that we see people struggle with a lot.
I actually like that a lot. I can see this as a YouTube short, foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And the final P is partnership. So if you're just joining this part of the video or you skipped ahead, which you shouldn't have, it's profile, pitch, publish, and we're now at partnerships. But you said you don't do partnerships. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I used to do occasional partnerships in the past, but even though there were some really wonderful partnerships, and I assume when you're talking partnerships, you're talking mostly brand deals, but maybe other partnerships as well. So from the brand deal perspective, I think that as a content creator focused in the finance space, my responsibility is always to make sure that I'm keeping the best interests of my community in mind at all times. And sometimes brand partnerships can get in the way of that. And that's not really a situation I ever want to put myself in, where, for example, we just saw a lot of creators get put into a really sticky situation with the whole SoFi situation. all of a sudden,
It's actually funny you said that, 'cause I thought you were going to go the PPP loans route. So there's a lot of people
no.
in a lot of different trouble for a lot of different reasons. But with SoFi,
Yeah, but I mean, you could even look at the SoFi situation. You could look at the, what was that huge cryptocurrency that went under, firm? You know what I'm talking about?
I feel like there were multiples.
FTX was like some of the biggest content creators in the finance space, the YouTubers, the people who are making millions every year are now getting sued for over $1 billion because FTX was essentially a fancy Ponzi scheme. So it's just, I think it puts our businesses at risk. You have to do a lot of due diligence in order to make sure it's even a company that you're willing to partner with. And then to only partner like with one bank or one refinancing company or whatever, you have to ask yourself, like, is that in the best interest of my audience or not? For me, it's like, I don't care what high yield savings account you go with, as long as it has these things. So for the most part, we don't do brand deals. We will occasionally do it for companies we love. Like, I love Capitalize. If Capitalize ever hollers at me again, I will do a brand deal with them in a second, but I'm not pursuing these because also I don't ever want my page to turn into a billboard. I want it to always be a place where people can get inspiration and education. And if I am promoting anything, it better be my own dang products, you know? You've got to be careful with who you work with because, again, you are going to be liable for, like, people are associating you with the brands you decide to partner with. So you've got to be careful. And I know people on TikTok will often roll their eyes when they hear that a creator is making their money through course sales. But to me, it's like, would you rather I was a bigger sellout and only did brand partnerships and told you to work with companies that are not, not necessarily big or good companies that I'm just trying to make a buck for? So I definitely think you can do it in a way that's ethical. I just think for me, when we have so many other things that we're promoting that are in line with what we do, it just doesn't really make sense for us most of the time. So every creator is going to be different. But I also don't like having bosses. So that's another reason I really don't do a lot of them.
If you're new here, you've been listening to Life After Debt with the Marcus Garrett, where we help underpaid professionals just like you, potentially, find easier ways to make more money. For those people who are struggling or successful right now, what's the best piece of advice an entrepreneur gave to you? And what's the best piece of advice you wish you knew sooner?
I think the best piece of advice that I got was from my business coach. Shout out to Natalia from I Speak Social, when she told me to only focus on one thing. Because as an entrepreneur, it is so easy to get distracted by the next shiny object, the next business idea, the next product that you want to make, the next partnership you want to pursue. And because of that, your attention gets pulled in a million different directions, when in reality, in my experience, the reason I have a $500,000 course in a year and a half is because I have only focused on that course, perfecting it, improving the funnel, making sure that people's needs are getting met, making sure that we're marketing it in a way that actually resonates with people. And I couldn't have done that as quickly as I did had I been pulled in multiple different directions. So for a year, the Lazy Investors course was the only thing I did. I didn't have the Money Master Bootcamp. I didn't have any guides that people could purchase. I didn't do anything else because I was only focused on that. Only this year did we start to launch a few other products because we had that down pretty well. So I think that's huge. And it's so easy to get distracted that it was like a relief for somebody to say, you're just going to focus on this.
I overstand, and my long listening audience knows why. Thank you for coming on the show, and tell people where they could find you.
Yeah, you can find all my links are on clobare.com, CLOBARE.com. I'm most active on Instagram at Clobear Money Coach.